doing?
Hi, good night.
Good night. Tell me in the chat, how are you guys doing? Can y'all hear me? Hi, hi Raja, hi Anusha, hi Karan, hi Joan. Hello. Oh, that's late. Absolutely. We're so happy that you guys passed and are here on the other side of this, right? You're not attending Dr. Singh's or your LSP's lecture to study, but you're now attending on the other side and trying to understand what's going on. So glad you all are here. So we're going to keep this nice and quick because I know for a lot of y'all it's late, and y'all are very grateful that y'all are here today. And then we want to make sure that we give you nice something to take back of how we can take this journey of your life after the NPTE forward. I'm going to be here in the chat and talking to you, and then Christina is going to do the same. I'd like to take a second to introduce her. She's our team member for Career Final Frontier and helps with all kinds of great stuff that we're putting out there. I'm sure you all must have seen the great posts that she's been putting out on our alumni group, especially if you're a Final Frontier alumni. That's right, no more NPTE, right? This is life after the NPTE. So I and Christina are glad to have all of you all here today to one more time come and listen to us and see how we can now function and make this life after your NPTE better. Okay. Christina is going to run the chat for a little bit while I take some slides, and then she's going to hop on and give you some more information while I run the chats. Okay. So we're going to help you out. Let's try to see what are we doing and how are we here to help you. So a very major goal for Final Frontier as a whole team and as a whole family is to advocate for you. Now, what do we mean by advocating for you, right? How about we go back to our process, right? We have a process where we start with credentialing foreign PTs. Usually foreign PTs fall in this, right? We start credentialing, we start helping putting paperwork in. Then we join Final Frontier as a course to take the NPTE, struggle through it, pass through it. And now we want to advocate for you to get the right amount of information, to get the right knowledge as to examples would be, what is the right way to write a resume? How to negotiate for your salary? What is the best place to work at? Is this a valid offer for a particular state that you want to work in? Does this look like a red flag? Or what should I be careful about here while accepting this offer? How do I do documentation? I know people like me, I'm also a foreign graduate, and it's hard for us to understand documentation because back in our country, we don't have to document, right? So all of these small things is where we're trying to advocate for you and help. We've been doing this for so long, and you guys probably know that Final Frontier is always a step ahead in helping. So this is our way to advocate for you and help you guys. A moment to congratulate all of y'all. I'm sure I've sent out so many emails in the last few days congratulating y'all, talking to y'all, but I feel like I'm going to say this one more time. A huge congratulations that you have really ironed this journey from you will pass to that you have passed, and there is no other joy. We all know how difficult that exam is. We all know how difficult it is to get through with your sweat and tears, but you've done it, and we're very proud of you. But now what happens next? What are we going to do after we've passed, right? I'm sure you all had a little break, and that's why this session is a few days delayed so that you got a nice weekend to yourself and you could enjoy it. But now back to work, right? Next steps. What are our next steps? Where do we start? How do we start? How do we make this process easier and smooth for you? So a few next steps, and this could go in that chronological order, or you must have already finished one or two of these steps and are already ahead of time, depending upon where you are in your process, right? So we would first start with trying to build a nice resume. And we're going to talk about what is important while building a resume and how would you come out with the best form of resume, right? That looks good enough to attract your resume in a pool of other resumes that might be sitting at a recruiter's desk, right? What PT facility would you want to work in? Again, it's always a hustle and we're always trying to think, okay, what is best for me? Maybe when you were in your DPT or when you were in your master's or bachelor's, you could decide where you want to work. But now this is getting real, right? You're actually stepping into the clinical world, no more seeing all these theoretical things. And now you have to make sure that you make the right decision for yourself, right? Then another decision is that, are you willing to work in the state that you got your license for, or do you want to work somewhere else? And now you have to endorse your license somewhere else. Hopefully and thankfully, you don't have to give the test again, because I wouldn't do it. But again, you have to endorse your license, and that also is a step, is a process. Every state has their uniquely different process, and that includes, some states also include law exams, like California and Florida. You might have to give the law exam for their state to be able to endorse your license to that state, right? Then it's the main process is to find your dream job, a place where you would love to go every day and help all these people that you've been studying for and willing and ready to help them out, right? You, as foreign PTs and PTAs, you're wondering if someone that you're applying to, some organization or a clinic that you're applying to, is able to sponsor your visa, because that's the only way that you can live in the country and live your dream, right? So making a right choice of someone not taking advantage of you, someone being as nice and as supportive as a non-sponsored candidate, right? All of these small decisions are tough and are sometimes make you anxious, right? Getting trained, excuse me. So we want to make sure that we're trained and ready to go into the clinical world, right? It's one thing to study for NPT. It's another thing to actually stand there and face your patients, because they are your biggest NPT every day, every hour, right? You want to make sure that the people that you take care of are getting better. You are seeing results. You are able to provide that meaningful change in their lives, correct? So for that, you would probably need mentorship, or you would need questions of how to do this. How can I make this better? Hey, I don't know, a patient came in with X issue and I don't know how to solve that. Can you help us? All of those things, right? Negotiating salaries, practicing an interview so that you've ironed that before you go to an interview and you're not fumbling, correct? All of these things are your next steps. Now, this may look a lot because I've tried to go step by step and really break it down. But again, it's not to overwhelm you, it's to help and make you ready ahead of time of what the process may look like, okay? Let's jump right into some nice content and give you some tips and tricks about a few things, okay? First of all, it's the resume. Now, we would think that, yeah, I want to put everything in my resume that I've done so far, that belongs to me, all the good stuff. But what actually really matters? You want to pick something that matters. You know how people say sometimes more is better? No, less is better sometimes, right? The less you put on your resume, but the more effective it is, the better it is. You don't want to cross one page of your resume, right? You don't want to make it too big. You don't want to make it too short. It should, the person, if I am reviewing your resume, I should be able to finish glancing through your resume in less than 10 seconds and get my answers off of there. If I can't find those answers, then I'm going to be less interested in the minutes and the seconds after that. Why? Because I probably have a whole lot of resumes or a lot of other things in terms of choosing for an interviewee to do. So if I'm not attracted by your resume in the first 10, 15 seconds maximum, then I'm going to have a hard time to actually read through everything. So basic things. Now, what are those things, right? You want to keep it to one page is one thing, right? You want to have all your fonts, your format, and your experience that is aligned. Now, how do you have your experience aligned? You don't start with the first thing that you must have done to now, but you start with the most current thing that you did to down. Like say if you did your, say this is January, this is February, right? So you passed your NPTE in January and maybe you did your clinical rotation, the third clinical rotation, and you finished that in December. You will mention about your third clinical rotation first and then go drop down through your experiences. Another point, great point would be clinical rotations are counted as experience. Please do not count them any less than that. That is your experience. You did that for 6 to 12 to 8 weeks and you were mentored and supervised, right? So you want to make that count as your experience. Sometimes in your clinical rotations, you are able to choose which facility you want to go to, right? I recently had an example that I hired someone just a few days ago that had done their first clinical rotation with me. And now they're doing their last clinical rotation also in a similar facility as mine. That shows how much they have interest in that same facility. It makes very easy for me to hire that person. First, because I've worked with them, and second, because the consistency of the facility they chose because is what they want to do after they pass their NPT or after they graduate. So it's very important to make that call, okay, and to stick to that. A few things. What would be a right or a wrong format of writing things, right? You cannot write a November, cut short in November 2019 and then write December 2020 and then not write 2022 and just to do 22, right? You want to make sure you put everything in the right format, right? Like I said, most relevant experiences come first, correct? Now, another very important thing is the first 2 lines of your resume under your name, right? The summary that you provide someone that is looking at your resume should be very crisp, clear, and give an idea of what you're looking for. You're licensed in dash state, you're looking for a dash facility, and you're trying to get a opportunity in so-and-so place, right? That gives it a little head start. It gives it going. Now I'm interested in looking if that resume, if that 2 lines meet my requirement for an employee, now I'm looking deeper into it, right? So those are a few things that I would recommend strongly that you make sure that your resume has, right? Now I'm going to give you an example. This is an example of a resume that is very nicely written, right? That they have mentioned that they're a physical therapy student as of now, right? They have mentioned their objective, contact details, the education, the skills they have. An important thing for us after passing would be, I want to see your license number, right? I want to make sure that I see it right on there. And I don't have to spend another email to ask you what your license number is, right? Because I want to have it right there. So that would be an important thing to add to your resume. Even if you are awaiting your license number after you've passed, because I know it takes a little bit for you to receive that, you can still write that you're awaiting. That gives them an idea as to what's going on with your license, right? Because you should be able to, they should be able to pull you up on the state's website and look it up, but you don't want to have them do that extra step. You want to keep it as ready for them as possible, right? Like I said, the work experiences, you start from the recent one, like they started from 2020 and they went down, right? So that's the right way to go about your experiences. And again, one more time, your rotation, clinical experience, volunteering, observership, physical therapy aid, all of these count as your experience, right? Because as an aide, you probably spend so much time around your patients and were supervised to the environment, and that actually counts as experience. So don't forget to add those in your resume, right? Anything, one small tip, anything that does not include or concern with physical therapy, I would probably not add that on my resume. Okay, only and only relevant stuff on the resume. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to Christina, and she's going to take up the next few slides and give you a little more information about the different other topics. Okay.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to talk to you all about these really important topics. Congratulations on passing the NPTE and being at this phase in your journey. We're happy to be here with you too. So there are definitely different types of facilities and settings that you can choose. Some of you might already know which way you're leaning if you want to do outpatient, inpatient, acute care, skilled nursing facilities, home health care. So this slide is basically just a description of some of the different things you might see in each of those locations. So if you choose outpatient, something to keep in mind is that you're going to be treating more of an active population. They walk in and walk out, as we like to say. So they're all different age groups. You'll see a variety of different diagnoses. The therapists there tend to see more patients in a day. So that would be something that you might want to consider when you're looking at an outpatient setting. Inpatient is where the patient is actually living in the facility, even if it's for a short period of time. So the diagnoses that you see and your caseload might be smaller, and the diagnoses will be different. So you could see CVA patients, traumatic brain injuries, multi-trauma accidents, spinal cord injuries. You might be working in a facility that has an ICU, patients that have had transplants, LVAD patients, complex patients that have multiple diagnoses that are happening at the same time, and people that need that inpatient support medically and also more assistance to get back to their prior level of function or be able to do their ADLs functionally again. Acute care is more of a hospital-based setting. So you're going to have a bunch of multi-system patients there. You'll have, depending on the size of the facility, you'll have different sections, floors, pods sometimes, and you might rotate throughout those different sections. Some of that could be a med-surg section, ICUs that are broken down by specialty, like a neuro ICU, a cardiac ICU, oncology patients, pediatrics. In the hospital, you also cover the emergency room, which can be kind of cool sometimes. And a PCU is a step-down unit. So when patients go from an ICU and they're trying to work their way towards leaving the hospital, they'll usually spend some time in a step-down unit so that they can kind of wean back off of being in that ICU setting to actually leaving the hospital. The skilled nursing facility, or the SNF, that's again when the facility houses the patients there. They do holistic care there, so they get all of their needs in that spot. Home health is where you visit people in their homes. You can also visit them at assisted living facilities and independent living facilities too as a therapist.
Perfect. Let's try to go to our next one. So with this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this into some tips that we can give you for outpatient versus some tips we can give you for inpatient and acute care, and just a general differentiation of how a clinic work life looks like, okay, and what is expected out of you. Now, I would say that there are two types of companies. Usually it's a larger organization, large company, or a small to medium size, right? And they have their different procedures of having your interviews. It's not too different, but in a small or medium company, the rounds may be less. The person you are interacting to may be a direct CEO or a direct senior person. Whereas in a larger company, the difference is they might have a well-based recruiting system that recruits, right? So that is the difference between the two mainly. Now, how about the outpatient? The outpatient is usually a little bit of more fast-paced environment, right? It is time pertinent, right? You have to go at a certain time and come out at a certain time. And it is output facilitated because you want to, like Christina said, walk in and walk out the patients, right? They have functional, above average functional goals. Now, what above average functional goal means is I'm going to tell you in 1 minute. That needs to be achieved. And that is why they're here in your outpatient facility. Another reason why they're at outpatient is because they are able to be mobile enough to walk or come to your clinic. And that is why they do not suffice the regulations for a home physical therapy or a skilled nursing facility, right? That is the other reason why they're at your outpatient clinic, right? Some people also want to get back to sport activities or some game or some recreational purposes or work, say just going back to work and doing the work that they were doing before this injury happened, right? So all of these kind of things. Now, above average function is maybe, Christina would agree with me that in acute care or inpatient, your main goal of treating is to get them back to their areas enough so that they can do their areas. Now, above average means that they are able to do above that areas, above your household chores, above self-care, right? Everything that comes above that. So above average functional goals would be that. I'm going to hand it over to Christina.
I absolutely agree. In the acute care setting, we definitely want to make sure everyone's medically stable and then work their way through the process. So starting from an acute care setting, like inside of a hospital, and then maybe moving to an inpatient rehabilitation unit that's either attached to a hospital at a larger facility or a standalone. Then you can have respite stays at skilled nursing facilities that are purposely set aside at SNFs for rehab, like a short-term rehab, and then getting people home. So returning to function and task-specific training is very big in the acute care community. So when you're working for a large company, when you're thinking about inpatient, you would think of something like Hartford Healthcare Network, Trinity Healthcare, major healthcare corporations that have a bunch of different settings and locations throughout your state. So whatever that equivalent would be in your state would be like a large company. So the typical process is you go online, when you see a posting, you submit your resume. They get all of the resumes. They have HR that helps review all those resumes. They say, hey, this person probably would be someone you want to look at. Then your director or your rehab manager will look over your resume. Sometimes they'll give you a call. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes it's all electronic because there's so many people because it's such a large company. And they'll say, hey, we liked your resume. We'd like for you to come in and shadow, maybe sit with a panel of your peers for a portion of the interview. And then if all of that goes well, your interview, your phone call, your shadowing, your peer review panel, then HR will send you an email saying, congratulations, we really liked you. Now we'd like to talk to you about benefits and the salary negotiation, versus a smaller, medium-sized company. So this could be maybe a small hospital, like a private hospital that's not really a trauma center, but it's local, or maybe a standalone inpatient rehabilitation unit that has a bunch of locations across the country, but not so many in your state, maybe one or two in your state. So the process will be similar, where you can either know someone that works there and give your resume to them to give to the one HR person for that company, or you can apply online. And then that goes directly to the director, the founder, your rehab manager that's more working directly with HR and personally, because it's a smaller place. And then they say, hey, we like you, come in, we'll do a phone call, we'll shadow, we'll do an interview. They like you, they'll call you usually because it's a smaller facility, and they'll say, hey, we'd love to offer you the job. Well, now let's talk about salary negotiation and benefits. So depending on where you choose to work and the size, your experience might be a little bit different, but the process is very similar. So some tips when it comes time to the interview. So this is the part where they've selected your resume. Wow, this person's great. Let's bring them in. So sometimes in an inpatient facility, they might ask you to wear scrubs because you'll do some sort of shadow experience or you'll be in the hospital. However, for your general interview, you definitely want to wear formal, semi-formal clothing. You want to look sharp, right? Dressed to impress. Arriving on time does not mean on time. It actually means 10 or 15 minutes early. You look better when you arrive dressed to impress and early. It's also kind of helpful to have like a resume holder. Always bring a pen, little tips like that. Maybe do some research about the facility before you go. Prepare yourself by practicing an interview with someone that's a close friend or family member, or what's even better is someone that's in a management position that you know, or another physical therapist, because they know what this process is like. So they can kind of help you go through it and set you up for success. So some questions that you can be expected to be asked would be to give a rundown of your experience. They want to know the bullet of who you are. Who are you? When did you graduate? Where are you licensed? Summarize your entire work experience as a physical therapist thus far to them. Have you had any experience with billing and coding? Do you know what the laws for your state are? What is your clinical field experience like? What documentation systems have you used? Believe it or not, that's actually really handy if you apply for a place where you're proficient in their documentation system, because your onboarding will be significantly shorter. How many hours have you worked in the past, and what is your pay expectation? Usually HR will ask that, not so much the rehab manager, but that is something you could be asked. What was your caseload size in the past that you're used to handling? A really awkward question that everyone likes to ask is, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Because we don't like to say we have weaknesses, right? So everyone wants to do the defensive thing and say, I don't have any weaknesses, I'm awesome. They'll be more impressed if you're honest and you rephrase your weakness in the form of a strength. So if you want help with stuff like that, this is what Career Final Frontier can help you with. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? That's also another question that is often asked. So if you don't have a 5-year plan, you might want to start thinking about making one, or at least rehearse one that you think an employer would want to hear while you actually make a 5-year plan for yourself. And we can help you with that too. Always look and talk with confidence, right? So that's all about looking good, dressing yourself up, making sure that you're putting good energy out there where you're confident in that you can do this job. Confidence is very contagious. At the end of every interview, any good interviewer will always ask you, do you have any questions? Don't say no. Always ask at least one question. Sometimes it's easy to get nervous or have like a total blank of your mind. So what I like to do is I like to bring my resume binder in that has scratch paper, and I'll put my questions inside of that prior to my interview. So when they throw it to me and say, hey, do you have any questions? I can open it and I have a whole list of questions that I have already prepared and written down to ask them. And then I just pick the ones that are most relevant considering how we're conversing with each other. So some examples are, would I have a mentor? Do you have a mentorship program? Do I have a preceptor if you're in the inpatient world? How many number of visits or patients would I be expected to see a week? Like, how do you quantify your productivity? Is there any opportunity for growth, either vertically or laterally within the company so that you can see your future with them? What are your continuing education requirements? Do you cover the cost of me attending live classes? Do you have a MedBridge subscription? What would my caseload like be here? And do the people that work here have work-life balance? Pay scales. So this is going to vary from state to state. Generally speaking, when they do market analysis for like your company does a market analysis of your pay, they like to encompass the entire country, but they start locally and then start expanding out. Typically, skilled nursing facilities and home health do have the highest paid positions. Don't let money fool you though, because as a new licensed clinician, just because they're offering you a lot of money, I would start sniffing around, because if they're going to offer you a bunch of money with no field experience, there's probably something else that you should explore. So ask good questions and figure out why they're trying to compensate by paying you a lot of money. Inpatient and acute care, at least in the states that I've worked in, we sometimes get the bad end of the stick. We don't always get paid a ton. But that can change. I mean, if you work at a private hospital, you bring a few years experience, you know somebody there, maybe it's in a nicer area, that could change. So just do your research, go online and see what your average salary is in your state and your specialty or where you're applying from. A lot of that information is online. Outpatient and cash-based outpatient. So if you're going to do outpatient, from what my friends have been going through, cash-based seems to be the way to go once it's an established cash-based outpatient facility.
Sorry. Thank you, Christina. That was really great and very helpful. Another thing that we wanted to close this webinar with was, how can we help you? We're asking this in a very genuine capacity. How can we help? Because we wanted to help. As a member of the Final Frontier family for years now, and then you all being a member and team for us, we wanted to make sure that we're able to help you after your NPTE, right? So you've already passed the NPTE. That was the first step, right? You can submit your resumes to us on the website. You can join our Instagram community, which is Career Final Frontier, as written on the chat. And then you can fill out the student information form, which I can put it in the chat, or I can put it on the Instagram as a link. So you all can just tap there and you should have it. And then we will help you in our best way to get matched to a suitable employer. I've put some photos here for you all to take a quick look at what are our current openings. And these, I want to tell you, are our very, very trusted A-level partners. These are only A-level clinics that we partner with. In terms of Final Frontier, we don't want to partner with anybody that doesn't fit in our core value as final frontier, and we want to make sure that you are being placed at a place that you're going to enjoy working in your life and in your career forward. So we want to ensure you that these are very, very thought through positions that we partner with and partner for y'all. And the last thing that I want to tell y'all is that y'all can reach out to us via our support email at any time. Like Christina mentioned, these are all our services that we provide and help our students with more detailed information on each of them. We could only cover a little part of everything that we offer today, just to let y'all know, just to make sure that we prepare you just enough to begin the process, and y'all have that right understanding of how you can start this. But this is all the other ways that we can help y'all. And feel free to reach out to us, feel free to email us, give us a few days to get back, because we have a large influx of emails coming in, especially right after the exam, but we will get back to you. I am going to hold up the chat here and stay in here for a few more minutes so that I can answer all the questions that you all have. But this is all the information that we wanted to share from our end. And we're very, very proud and happy for you all that you all have passed, and we would love to now assist you via Career Final Frontier.